Good Shabbos, everybody. Two quick announcements before I begin. Firstly, I want to extend on behalf of myself and Elizabeth heartfelt mazel tov to Sheila and Billy on the birth of a beautiful new grandson. I was hoping actually to extend it to Sheila directly, but you'll do it on our behalf. So mazel tov. May he be a much source of nachas, not only to parents, to his family, and the household of Israel, but to humanity in general. That's the first mazel tov. It's lovely to have a simcha. The second bit of news is not quite so comfortable, and that is to officially announce that after discussions with our medical advisors, we are taking the proactive move of closing the synagogue after this morning's service until further notice for all in-house services. All services will continue online and on Zoom unabated. We hope that you will join us. Gershon and myself will work out our Shabbat morning routine from here, but only with us and nobody else. I think it's very important, as I said on the Montreal Board of Rabbis group yesterday, it's just because the law says you can do something, it doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do. It doesn't mean we should do it. There is here a very big moral and ethical question, and that is that the numbers are at a catastrophic high at the moment. Beds are filling up quickly, both in the ICUs and in the general medical general hospital. The doctors, God bless you, and the nurses are overrun. It is, I think, unethical for the country to have to shut down by instruction of the ministry and synagogues remain open. It's, I don't think it's right, and I think it's the right thing to help wherever we can, however little we can, in supporting our frontline workers to try and curb this. So please show us your support by joining us online for all services. We're still here to answer the phones. Your synagogue, your board has been very forward-thinking in recent months, installing equipment that will allow the office to continue to work unabated, but from the staff from their homes. So when you call in, the phones are automatically diverted to whoever's going to be answering the phone, and your needs will still be taken care of, just in a slightly different way. So I have no doubt you all understand, which brings me to the topic of my sermon this morning. So even though the numbers are climbing, the vaccine is here. What does the Torah and what does Jewish law say about us taking such a vaccine? Should we or should we not? I know there's a lot of questions that people have. Not everybody. Some people are quite okay with it. So let's try and sort of decipher that for a few minutes this morning. We're going to open up with this morning's Torah portion, Parashat Miketz. There are dark and difficult times in the parasha, in both the land of Israel and Egypt. There's been severe famine in both countries. The economic devastation of the famine in Egypt was utter and complete. In next week's parasha, we are going to read how the entire population of Egypt, other than the priests, lost all their money, they lost all their livestock, they lost all their land. It makes the economic impact of the coronavirus look mild by comparison. People were saved because of wisdom. Joseph's wisdom. Joseph both saw what was coming, and he had the wisdom to know what to do to prepare for it and for the difficult times that were coming, to save as many lives as possible. It's appropriate we read this story during Hanukkah, the week of Hanukkah, a time of miraculous deliverance for the Jewish people, and it's also fitting that during the darkest time of the year, we read a story of going from dark times to better times. It's also very fitting for this week, because this week, wisdom is once again saving the world. This week, a great light is shining. A great light that's marking a transition from a time of darkness to a lighter time. On Monday, the first vaccinations against the coronavirus were given. One of the first Canadians to receive the vaccine was Gloria Laluz, right here in Montreal at Maimonides. Laluz was excited to receive the vaccine. She said that for 8 months she hadn't left her room, not even to go out into the corridor. She knew personally 8 people. 8 people in Maimonides who lost their lives because of corona. She said, I hope everyone gets the vaccine because it's important to keep living. I hope everyone gets the vaccine because it's important to keep living. Her words. And yet, there are people who say that they will refuse to get vaccinated. 48% of Canadians, 48%, said that they would take the vaccine immediately if it was offered. 14% said that they will flatly refuse to get vaccinated, period. And another 38% say they will take it, but they want to wait. So, where's Jewish tradition? Jewish tradition tells us that we are obligated to get vaccinated. There are 2 reasons for this obligation. We are obligated to protect ourselves, and we are obligated to protect those around us, other people. That's Jewish tradition. The Torah commands us, Rak hisham elacho, shmo nafshecha ma'od. Just guard yourself and guard your soul exceedingly. The rabbis teach us that guard yourself means look after your physical body. We are obligated to take the actions that protect ourselves from danger and from health hazards. Now, some people have said to me, they said, Rabbi, there's not enough data yet. I want to wait to make sure that the vaccine is safe. Let people tell me this. So far, over 13,000 Canadians have died from COVID-19. How much safer than the virus does a vaccine need to be? The Pfizer clinical trial inoculated over 21,000 people with the vaccine. The vaccine was found to be 95% effective. No one died from the vaccine, and the incidence of serious side effects was more or less the same as people who received a placebo, about half of 1%. Meaning that the serious side effects were very rare, and probably weren't actually side effects, but were something else going on in the person that happened to come out after they got the vaccine. Now contrast these safety levels with earlier vaccines. The earliest attempt at a vaccine was, believe it or not, in the late 1700s, when doctors tried to stop the smallpox epidemic by intentionally infecting healthy people with a very low grade of fluid from people who had already contracted the smallpox. Now, the thinking was correct. It was a mild dose that would let persons build up immunity from an outbreak of the disease. This was a very risky approach. very risky approach, intentionally to give a healthy person smallpox. Yet, Rabbi Avraham Nansich, who lost 2 children to smallpox, published a pamphlet in 1785 telling Jews that they should participate and get the inoculation even though it was risky. He argued that we are all at even greater risks from an outbreak of smallpox and therefore should accept those risks and go ahead and get the inoculation. In Talmudic parlance, we say, al achas kama v'kama, all the more so today, when we have a vaccine proven to be safe in tens of thousands of people, and we have a disease known to be deadly to millions, that we should be eager to get the vaccine. We need to get vaccinated not only to protect ourselves, but to protect others as well. The Torah charges us, Lo ta'amod al dam re'echa. Do not stand idly by your brother's blood. And this is understood to mean that if we can take any action to save another person's life, we are obligated to do so. Now I hear you saying, or about to say, or would say, or might say, but should I do that if there is a risk to my own life? We'll get to that in a second. But the more troubling question is the people who say, I don't need to get vaccinated because I can rely on herd immunity. Let other people get vaccinated. That is very much the wrong approach, and it is against Jewish tradition. There are people who, for medical reasons, cannot get vaccinated. We understand that. We know it's not fit for everybody. We don't know yet whether the vaccine is safe for some people, perhaps in children, perhaps pregnant women, for example. People with a history of allergic reactions to medicine may need to avoid the vaccine. Those people have to rely on herd immunity. And it's up to all of us to get vaccinated, to provide the people who can't get vaccinated with a safe environment. Halacha, Jewish law, is pretty clear that we all have an obligation to get vaccinated, assuming that we don't have any medical conditions that would preclude us doing so. The vaccine is in short supply. So how do we decide who should get vaccinated first? Now, according to some estimates, the most lives would be saved by first vaccinating the people who are spreading the disease the most. Which means college students, who in too many cases are behaving irresponsibly in their mass gatherings, in their parties, and thus many people get infected and they carry those infections to other places. But to me, that argument doesn't seem fair. They should be rewarded for being irresponsible. And shouldn't we protect the people who are in greater danger? Does the Jewish tradition have anything to say on this particular part of the subject? Well, there is a passage in the Mishnah, and I know that what I'm about to say, some people might want to throw something at me, but please don't. Just wait a little. Let me finish before you do so. Especially those of you at home, don't throw anything at your screens. Screens are expensive to replace. There is a passage in the Mishnah, in Horayot, which gives a set of priorities for who to save. Here goes. A man takes precedence over a woman in matters of saving. There's going to be a reaction. A priest, and let me finish. A priest takes precedence over an Israelite. an Israelite over a bastard. And this order applies only when all other attributes are equal. But what happens if the bastard is a Torah scholar and the high priest is unlearned? The scholarly bastard takes precedence over the ignorant high priest. Now, I got to tell you, and that's why I said let me finish. Modern rabbis across all spectrums have pretty much universally rejected this Mishnah as a basis for triage. In fact, the late Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, Zechet Tzadok Livracha, one of the leading Orthodox decisors and scholars of the 20th century, rejected using this Mishnah as a basis for setting any form of preferences. So now you can put down the things you were going to throw at me, just put them down. It's okay. He quotes the Mishnah Brura, which states that we have no Torah scholars in our time and everybody is equal, nobody is over above anybody else. And so therefore this cannot be used as a way to decide who gets saved first. Some secular ethicists have argued in favor of taking whatever approach maximizes years of life saved. I'll explain that, but I've got to tell you I have a huge problem with this. But I'll explain what it is. In this scheme, saving a 20-year-old life is considered better than saving an 80-year-old life. Because the 20-year-old life has an assumption of more years of life ahead of them than the 80-year-old. I have to tell you that Judaism outright, flatly rejects this approach. Judaism teaches the value that life is infinite. So there is no difference. There is no difference in the value of the life of a 20-year-old versus the life of an 80-year-old. There is really only one exception. Someone who has a terminal illness, defined as someone who will almost definitely die within a year. Only that person is treated differently. They sort of would go to the back of the line for a vaccine, because in one sense the process of dying has already started. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, another great decisor, a great scholar, who lived in Jerusalem, he ruled that age does not go into or enter into the equation in any way, shape, or form of whom one saves first. One should only look into the level of danger and the chance of saving the most number of lives. Even though life is infinitely valuable, so all lives are in principle equally precious. An exception is made, and I think it is correct, made for our healthcare workers in particular and other essential workers. We need to keep our doctors, our nurses, our orderlies, all those who take care of us healthy, so they can tend to those who get sick. This is recognized in halacha, this is recognized in Jewish law. We give them priority. What do we say? La kehilat tzrichim lo, because the community needs them. Keeping healthcare workers safe and healthy clearly also saves lives in the long run. So it's consistent with the approach that we would take of trying to save most lives. Most poskim, most decisors, would also agree that certain people important to the functioning of society, such as the Prime Minister, regardless of your political bias, the Prime Minister, certain government officials, should also get preferential treatment for a vaccine. So, saying all that, after looking at our government, both federal and provincial, I think that the priorities set, certainly by the province, for who gets vaccinated first are completely consistent with halakha, with Jewish law. They are focused on protecting the most vulnerable. That's why Maimonides was one of the first sites in the province to get the vaccine. After seniors in long-term care, healthcare staff are next, followed by different age groups, with those over 80, since we know the disease is deadlier the older you are. So I think they're doing with what they have, they're right with what they have. Chanukah, my friends, comes in the darkest time of the year. But what it does do, it brings a message of light and renewal. It's so very appropriate that the first vaccines were given during the holiday, as the vaccines represent a real turning point, putting us back on the road to normalcy, putting us back on the path to where we can safely gather together as a community, where we can safely be here together in synagogue and safely spend time with friends and family. On this Shabbat, as we unfortunately have to close our doors temporarily, may we soon see an end to the dark days of this pandemic. Shabbat Shalom.